Okay, dear students, I wanted to give you guys a quick overview of this Desmos Art Project, especially for students who are remote. So I actually have 3 different Desmos Art activities set up, and it's to try to kind of guide you towards the final project, to give you some tricks and techniques that you can use. So the first one is the preparation project, and I'd like for you to do this before you come to class or by Friday the 21st if you're remote, right? But if you're hybrid, you need to do it before your class time. And if you do that, it will be 10 extra credit points on this Desmos Art Project, which is a quiz grade. Now, you may have noticed that it did say doing the last page, finish it up, will result in 10 points more extra credit. It's not required because that last page is really challenging. So what it does is it says, okay, we're going to make some art with math. And what they've done is they have a picture they're going to base the art on. You do not need to do that. But it shows us how to start to draw the outline of this little piece of art. So instead of going in and typing in, oh, I think that has a slope of 2 and and kind of doing it that way, what we can do with Desmos is we use our sliders, and remember they would show up as, do you want to do sliders? And I'd say, yeah, show me all my sliders. And then you can simply move your line to find where you want it to go. Okay, which is a lot easier than having to type in each value of M and B that you think your line should have and then trying it over and over until you get it just right. Now, our roof doesn't extend forever and ever, so Desmos allows us to constrain our function so that it only extends over a certain domain. In this case, it's domain, right? Because it's your x values. So you can assign the constraints using these brackets. So it'll step you through doing that. And then it'll have you do the right-hand side of your roof, but you actually start from this point. So you'll need to remember that you have to type in the y equals mx plus b formula and then put your sliders in. And then you will want to constrain your roof also. And then you want to do the walls. So remember that a vertical line is x equals, okay? And so you'll end up doing, I've already typed this one in. You'll end up typing in where you think the walls are and working with that. And then I think, yeah, and then you can also constrain the walls and how high up you want them to go. Now you'll notice you're constraining them in the, you're constraining their range, right? So how high up they go. So you can play with that and put constraints on the walls so they don't extend into eternity. Okay, now the one that gets a little, let's see, oh no, this is the bottom. So then you figure out where do you want the floor of your roof to be, and that's a horizontal line, so it's going to be y equals, and you'll want to put a constraint on it, but the constraint is in the domain, right? And then, so then you have the basics of your house, and then you'll want to play with, oops, actually, I'm going to get this to where you guys, how it'll look when you come to this site. So to figure out the tiles of the shingles of the roof, this is a parabola. You could also use a cosine or sine function if you know that, but that's trigonometry. So this is a parabola. So what you want to do is, you know the formula for a parabola. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so then it says, do you want sliders for all these? And you're like, yes, I do. Okay, so now what you can do is very easily move your parabola around to figure out, to try to get it to fit the one they've given you. And you're just going to play with it and figure out where it goes and how to get it there. It is challenging, but it's kind of fun, I think. Yeah, and it won't be exact because these aren't exact parabolas. Okay. And then I think, yeah, and so you will want to restrict the domain once you figure out what the A, B, and C values are. You'll want to restrict the domain, right, because it's going to be your X values. So say, I don't know, -1 is less than or less than x is less than, oops, less than +1. So you actually have to constrain it a good bit more. But I won't ruin the fun by telling you the answer. And so then you've done the very basics of creating Desmos arts. You figured out lines and you've used a parabola. Now, there is the option to finish up your house and finish up all of those tiles and the chimney and the windows and the door. But that is optional. You do not have to do that. So then you should do this before you get to class. And then the class lesson I'll go over with you all. Okay, and we'll just play with some of these ideas again. In particular, we'll look at restricting the domain and the range and see how it changes these shapes. And you're welcome to play with that yourself. And then we'll also play with just changing different attributes of functions to see how it changes. And this is where we're using inequalities in order to get our shapes to be shaded, because we like to color things in sometimes. They'll also show us how to use a draggable point if for some reason you would like to do that, or also to create a label that has no point. It shows you how to do that. And then simply how you can, if you do leave sliders on the screen, then you can actually change your shape, which that's actually one of the requirements of this assignment, is to have a slider that you use to kind of alter your artwork. But I don't want all of them to have sliders because that would be a mess. And then we play with a little bit more with a shape inside of a shape. Quickly, I want to go back to the first page. This link here has a lot of different graphing techniques that you may want to start to look at and play with and get familiar with. You see some polar graphing and some parametric equations. Those are kind of cool. And then how we can make some designs with lists. So when you click these links, generally you want to look for example graphs. That's going to be the stuff that shows you kind of the artsy kind of side of things. Polygons, those will also be helpful to possibly know. And then, so that we'll discuss in class. So please Zoom if you're remote. And then Desmos Art assignment. Okay. This steps you through the assignment itself. And this is where you'll put your final Desmos assignment. You will need to have 50 equations or functions, use one slider, and one slider that'll be left behind, right? You might use sliders to calculate things and to figure out things, but you'll only leave one slider at a minimum in your project. So then, and you'll use at least 3 different types of functions. Here are some examples of other middle school projects and the expectations for this project. I am expecting that this is all your own work. You can find inspiration online, but you are not to steal other people's work, or else you will get a 0 for this quiz grade. So please don't do that, but please ask for help. Ask me for help. You can ask your friends for help, but not for answers. But make sure to ask me questions about this, and then you put your final project on this screen. Okay. So, and then you summarize what you learned from it. So I hope you all enjoy this project, and I'll see you in class.